Welcome back. Today we are going to talk about how to be unapologetically you and how to navigate expressing yourself within societal norms today. So, I want to tell you about a time when I was in law school, and I've always been into fun fashion, as we talked about before, and sewing my own clothes and making all kinds of fun stuff to fit my personality that wasn't out there. So, we have a barrister's ball each year in law school, which is the big, gala where you dress up and there's awards and dinner and it's the fancy party of the year. Well, one year I went to the gala and I wore an amazing bright red pleather dress that I made. Leather, crisscross up the back. I mean, it was awesome. And I had a great time, didn't think anything of it. It was a dance. It's not like I was in the courtroom or anything like that. Well, a teacher that I had not yet had, I would have had her in my third year. So this was the barrister's ball in second year. Apparently, after that, was talking about my dress and how inappropriate it was, and just really putting all of these judgments on me. I literally never met her because I wasn't due to have her in a class till the next year. And, you know, how I wouldn't know how to dress and I wouldn't get anywhere in the law world and all of this stuff. And it was too short, all these things. Whereas meanwhile, I had already been having an externship in the law world, in a criminal courtroom. I wore a suit every day, pearl earrings. I mean, I talked about it a little bit in the last one. So I obviously knew how to dress, but she didn't know me. And so it was really, she made all of these snap judgments about me and that I wasn't right for the law and all of these things. Meanwhile, at that time in law school, at the end of my second year, I was second in the class, ranked second. So how I dress had nothing to do with up here, right? So many of us, we get that. We understand that, just because you have pink hair doesn't mean you aren't smart, aren't fun, aren't, you know, beautiful, friendly, all the things. It doesn't change who you might be if you had had regular colored hair, but still, how many workplaces don't allow you to have unusually colored hair or tattoos that show? Especially in Colorado, like everybody's got tattoos, everybody's got dogs, like there's so many things that, still aren't allowed and are still looked down upon. Like if we have tattoos showing, or if we have different colored hair, or if we're wearing a red leather dress at a party, basically, that we obviously have no place being there or being around. And what are we doing? Right. So that's one of my many experiences that brings me to just talk about this part. And did that change who I was or how I dressed? Absolutely not. I actually went to that teacher the next day and I was like, what's the issue? And she's like, well, that's not the appropriate way to dress in court. Well, we weren't in court, you know? Um, so, it's, water under the bridge, but I just know that many of us have experienced several similar instances. So that's what we're going to talk about, because stifling ourselves or not getting to express ourselves in our ways that we find fun that's not going to be a fulfilling life. So how do we sort of mesh the two, or what can we bring to the picture? So there's a lot of challenges that surround it. Of course, it's getting better every day. People are becoming a lot more open-minded, new generations, etc. But we've still got some of it going on now. So that is where we need to work at, is where we're at now. So whereas I, looking straight at me, don't always seem like an alternative Gothic lifestyle self, that's, sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I wear dark, black lace and everything. And sometimes I don't, it's all up to me. I've had people, when we were trying to find an au pair for my children, I have 3 kids, and we were working on finding an au pair, and some childcare. And they come into your home and they look around. And meanwhile, my home is entirely Halloween, Gothic spiders, alternative krakens, interesting artwork, shipwrecks with skulls. I mean, it's just all over the place like that. And literally, I had the au pair person that comes evaluate everything ask if we were satanic. and that would really hurt our chances of getting an au pair. I, it's just a style. It's just fun. There was nothing at all to suggest that we might be, but just yet another example of how there are snap judgments. So how do we work around that? And how do we, you know, succeed in a society that may look at us in a way that isn't actually the way that we are, make snap judgments, stereotype, etc. So I had alluded to it in the last episode about how I had sort of developed my first jewelry piece in my head of what could I wear that would still be my fun style, but would be acceptable in the courtroom and wouldn't show anything. And I will put a picture of it up on social media. Or if you guys are watching my film of this podcast, then I could show it to you now if you're able to see it. But I had created a ring that was vampire fangs. But still, like in your average everyday look, you wouldn't notice. It just looks like a ring. But I got to enjoy my vampire fangs on a daily basis. And it's still the first piece of jewelry that I ended up making when I learned to create jewelry. And I still wear it every day. And I get so many compliments on it. You would not believe it when people, it's just like a double take. So, you know, well, that's, a very small piece of it, a very small story of it. It was still meaningful to me and helped satisfy my urge and my needs while still not compromising, how it might come across in the legal setting, which is still very, very conservative, but obviously even more so. Gosh, when was I even in law school? Like 15, 16 years ago? A long time ago. So, and it just continues, the way you show up at interviews and jobs in life and going forward. So that was my particular strategy in my head for being a courtroom attorney at that time. Wasn't something I was able to implement then, but certainly is now. Another fun way, again, as a courtroom attorney, it was always, I shouldn't have tattoos that could show, especially back in those days. I mean, it's a lot more lax nowadays with workplaces and things, but it was not the case like that back then. So I had gotten all of my tattoos were able to be covered with my long sleeve suit, my skirt, my shoes. I would wear closed toes because I have some tattoos on my feet. But one I did get was on my wrist here. But I always wore a watch, and I made sure that it was enough to be able to cover it if for some reason my sleeve pulled up or I needed to take off my jacket or something like that. For those of you who may be watching may see that I have, a tattoo on my finger now and on my arm, but I'm no longer a practicing attorney. So, I don't need to worry about that. But so I was able to find creative ways to make sure like I still had my skull bat vampire tattoos, or I've also got hearts and stars and sparkles and spider webs. We're all able to be covered, but I was still able to express myself in the way that I wanted. So, well, it's not necessarily, it's hiding who you are. It's more of like making a compromise. So this is their requirements. Well, these are your requirements. And how can you mesh the two? Which is basically where it went, right? So these are the courtroom requirements or expectations. And this is what I would want to do, which is probably, wear all my still jewelry with my black lace and, lots of eyeliner and things, which, but how can I mesh the two? How can I still have my style, but still be, courtroom appropriate? There's also lots of, I know I keep talking about this in the context of jobs, but obviously it applies everywhere, like my au pair story. So what might it look like? So there's a little bit of leeway in jobs as you've been there for a while. So whereas my regional operations management job, when I went into it, it was when I first started, I was wearing very natural makeup, very natural jewelry and clothing. But I got to tell you, like 1 year in, or even long before 1 year, I had proved myself right away, my value and what I could offer the company. And, I was being promoted. I started wearing all kinds of wild makeup, wild fun clothes, some, like celestial outfits, flowy. and it didn't phase the company one bit. Well, or if it did, I didn't have to hear about it. I still got to stay with the company, be promoted. It was still very well. I was still appreciated for my value to the company, regardless of what I wore. Obviously, when I was going to meet a new vendor or hire on a new dock or something, I would tone it down, not to scare them, but it's just a matter of finding that right balance, like we talked about before. So you do have that little leeway, as you're going along, which is, kind of to an extent what we do in relationships already, isn't it? I mean, we've all got some crazy in us, am I right? So, I mean, do you show all your full on crazy on the first date, or are we like, we can't be as insane as we want to be till we're a little bit more invested in the relationship? So that's like an analogy to use. It's not necessarily like work is going to stifle me. I can't work there. They don't allow this, this, and this. I mean, it's almost the same thing when we're starting to date, right? We don't jump all in 1000% in all of our crazy. We may, still jump in with our outfits and our style and such as this, but let's say you had, let's say you Googled the whole person, from top to bottom, and found out their exes or whatever it might be. You're not going to jump in on the first date saying you did all of those things. Well, at least not usually. So it's just a way of looking at it, is like we internally end up doing some of those same things, as keeping certain things under wraps until we are more established and invested, and etc., which is the same thing with jobs. No matter how hard we try, and I know that we are trying, a lot of us as a society, to work on stereotypes and snap judgments, and it's just a constant battle. I'm always working on it every day, every minute. They still happen unexpectedly, even if we don't want to, snap judgments. And so, they're never going to be gone. So it's just a way of how can we work around it and work within, while still being ourselves. So on top of that, who you are today may not be who you were 10 years ago, and is not who you're going to be 10 years from now. Just like companies are always evolving and rebranding and redoing their logos and their slogans, so are we, to an extent. Our style evolves, our preferences evolve, our, for the context of what I do, jewelry preferences evolve, right? I do a lot of, 10-year remakes, 5-year remakes, 15-year remakes, where they want something new, different, updated, meld it together, right? So it's the same thing, not just with jewelry, but with all of our style. I mean, don't we redecorate our houses periodically, or change up our cars and update things as we go? And it's the same thing with our personality and our style. So just because we've identified something we love, doesn't mean it's not going to change and evolve and become sort of a melding of the two. Like me today, I mean, obviously at first glance, a lot of the times you wouldn't know until, well, if you come in my house, you're going to see it right away. Or if you see my tattoos or listen to my, in the car with me listening to my music. But, outwardly, just, most of the time in a picture, I mean, I might have tons of glitter on. I might be in bright pink. I mean, I once went to a Static X concert in 2000. Was it 2000? It might have been 2000 or early 2001, in a bright pink sparkly shirt and got glitter all over everyone. I mean, you never know what it's going to be, and that's fine. That's my style. But figuring out a way to, meld it with what you need to do, to get where you want to get, to meet your goals, is, I mean, that's just life, having to figure out how to make what you want work with what's out there and melding the two. So it's just an extension of that. And there's so many different facets and fun things to explore, and like alternative stuff. I mean, I love, love, love all the fairy and cottage core and like fantasy stuff. I mean, that's so fun too. I really feel like that's a part of this. That's alternative lifestyle. It doesn't alternative styles and decor. I mean, we did sort of, I created some jewelry and a hairpiece for someone who was having like a witchy, boho, earthy themed wedding, and it was so much fun and so out of the norm and matched her style. So just because we're saying Gothic and it's called the Gothic Heart does not mean we're not going to cover or have impact on what your style is right now, because there's so many different options out there, right? By crazy glitter, rainbow sparkles, vampire skulls, spider webs. Style is not going to be what yours is, but we're all still going to face similar things from work, society, relationships, family, right? I mean, oh my goodness, did my family try to keep like stars and moons related when I was like in high school and middle school? I just loved that thing, but it was like celestial, like decor. But to them, I was doing witchcraft. I mean, it's long since now. Obviously, they came to my Halloween wedding. But you can see it from places you least expect it. So, in conclusion, with all that I've talked about here, it's gonna be such a fun ride. I have so many plans for people who can help support us in our journey and have resources along the way. And whether it's planning your amazing alternative event, or whether it's finding other people that share your similar interests, or maybe it's you've met someone that you're interested in and maybe they like these interests and you're trying to see how to become a part of it, or learn things. We're going to have it all. I'm so excited just because, I've lived it. I have my experiences to share. Plus I can bring in all these others, people that would even be able to support, any event venues. Like, let's say, you wanted to plan, an alternative like a Halloween bash or something. Now, while Halloween is pretty universally understood, most parties or weddings or proposals are not that theme. So you might get a lot of, white flowers and pastels and, etc. Whereas you might be looking for, hey, I don't even want flowers, or I want dead flowers for my bouquet. Like that would fit the style, or for the flowers that are being around, or I want blood dripping down the cake. My cake. But yeah, and where can you find people that can even come up with those cool ideas if we don't have them ourselves? Which that would be great things for us to cover here on the podcast. But people that can support us in seeing our vision and help us either find decor or clothes or plan an event that fits exactly what we want, because it's outside of the box, and that's not what your vast majority of your clothes, jewelry, home decor, wedding planning, event planning is. So we're gonna find it all for you. We're gonna get DIYs. We're gonna just go through it all together, and really excited about this journey. So I will see you on the next episode. Bye.